What's up, everybody? Josiah Leroy here. We are ready to talk HBO's The Last of Us. We watched episode 4 this week. Shocking. It was another good episode. Can't wait to get into the details on that. With me, as always, my boys. First of all, Mr. Baba Yaga. John Fick. Nice hoodie, bro.
Josiah, why are space rocks tastier than Earth rocks?
I don't know, John. Why?
Because they're a little meatier.
Oh, I love it.
That's a dad joke if I've ever heard one.
Listen,
You might find that in a book of puns.
you just might. Also with me, another awesome Buffalo apparel we've got going on. We got the Buffalo winter smile there. Mr. Tim Talbot. Tim, which Tim do we have tonight?
We have the Ryan Miller beer Tim today.
Ryan Miller beer Tim. That's a good one. My gosh. That artwork is phenomenal.
Awesome.
So cool. I can't wait to put a couple of those cans on my shelf. I'm going to keep them around for sure.
Yeah. They're beautiful. Both that and the Mills Pills. Can't go wrong with that.
Oh, I'm on a hockey withdrawal, so.
Dude, seriously. I'm ready to go. We got the Dylan Cousins signing today. We've got we're a point out of the playoffs right now. I cannot wait to get into it. My gosh, this is going to be the most fun February for Sabres fans in a decade.
Go Colorado. Playing right now.
Go Colorado. Come on, Erod. Help your boys out.
Yep.
Let's go. So, we're talking Last of Us. We'll keep it spoiler free here just for the first few minutes. Thanks for tuning in live at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. You can watch all our episodes on repeat at youtube.com/thegeekiverse. And of course, you can download the podcast wherever you download podcasts on services around the globe. So, first reactions here to episode 4 of HBO's The Last of Us. John, we'll start with you. Give us your 101.
Man, I just love this show so much. I had the thought when I was watching this, Courtney and I were sitting down giving it our first watch through. I actually only watched this one once. First time that I've only watched one once through so far. But it just like hit me that this is real and that we're getting a Last of Us show every Sunday. Like every time that title screen comes on, I never skip it because it's so good. I'm just like,
Same.
This is just candy for my brain. This is my favorite thing I've experienced media-wise in so long, and it's real. It's actually happening, and they continue to crush it. And this episode was no short of that. It's just so authentically The Last of Us. This was a fun one. This was a character building, relationship building episode. This was. If this could relate to gameplay in the game, this is when you were Joel and Ellie just walking through a city and just chit chatting. There's some combat here, there's some developments there, and then you're back walking through chit chatting. You're just developing that relationship, and they found a way to do that via television, which is so cool. We'll get into some plot points later, but yeah, this episode was. I don't think it had any of like the huge, big, jaw-dropping moments that any of the other, first 3 episodes have had, but it doesn't need it. Not every episode has to be that. This, like I said, was very much the character-building episode. This was the Joel and Ellie relationship-building episode, and I loved every second of it.
So this is going to sound funny to say. I kind of teased this in the chat earlier. I said, spoiler alert, this was actually my favorite episode yet. I think you're right, John. There wasn't any of those jaw-dropping, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened moments. But why it resonated with me so much is this felt the most consistent to the game. And I've always beat the drum that I don't care what the property was before that, whether it was in a video game or in a book or a movie, and then you're adapting it to something else. Those are 2 separate things. They're inspired by one or the other, and they a lot of times pay respect to it. But I loved how much this just felt like the game coming to life for me in a different way. And some of my favorite moments of The Last of Us, when this game really clicked with me, is really some of the more, this is going to sound like I'm shortchanging it, but some of the more mundane moments, some of the smaller moments in that world are what really resonate with me. So it's Joel and Ellie building that bond, whether they want to or not. It's Ellie telling those ridiculous jokes. You should have seen the smile on my face when she dove into some of what we're going to talk about in that book. It was just, that was my moment. Because from the game, those are some of my favorite moments. When you're just kind of walking through the environment, you're looking for weapons, you're seeing if you can find any ammunition. And just the dialogue between those 2 characters is what makes it really special to me. And we got a lot of that in this episode. So for me, episode 4, believe it or not, is my favorite episode so far. And we see the viewership numbers keep increasing percentage-wise week to week, which it's awesome to hear. Tim, your thoughts on this episode?
Very similar. So you guys kind of took the words out of my mouth. This was the episode I think that stayed most true to the fan. I know we talked about what we wanted to see. I mean, you get the scene in the truck and all that stuff. You kind of get a lot of what we as fans playing the game wanted to see.
This is the second time. This is the second time in the series that I've complained that something was missing, and we got it in the next episode.
Yes,
I complained. I complained that they didn't confront Ellie about the bite in episode 1. We got it in episode 2. I complained that we didn't get the magazine in the truck in episode 3, and we get it in episode 4.
But to me, this felt like the most. I feel like every episode so far has felt like a movie. Episode 1 felt like a movie. Episode 2 felt like a movie. Episode 3 felt like a movie. This is the one that to me that felt most like a TV show, which is a good thing because I feel like it's building the story. And I feel like you see a lot of that relationship between Joel and Ellie. You see a lot of, the comedic humor between Ellie and Joel and like how they're slowly breaking his shell and they're coming closer. I just loved everything about it. It was such a good episode. But to me, it felt like the most TV-like that you had to throw this in there to keep the story progressing the way it should.
Yeah,
So.
I see what you're saying there. It's probably the episode so far that stands alone the least. Like you could watch episode 1 and it could be like a standalone experience, and like sure you understand there's more to come, but that would be a pretty profound experience. And especially episode 3, that's very much a bottle episode. Like I could show that to anybody and they would get just as much out of it as anybody else, right? But this episode really is about moving the plot along and like finally like sitting down and nailing those character developments. So yeah, absolutely.
This is the first you've seen, like, I feel like this is the first time you've seen them together, you've seen them interact, you see them interact all three, but this is the first time you've truly seen them interact, just them two, which is what you get in the majority of the show.
Right.
So I feel like this is awesome. I loved it.
That's The Last of Us to me. It's the relationship between those two and how it builds, how it evolves, how it just gets deeper and better. And who doesn't love kind of that sarcastic, if not intense from time to time, father-daughter relationship where they butt heads, but at the end of the day, they're really getting over barriers and just becoming more of a duo, if you will.
They're doing it. They're doing such a good job.
Skeletons in the closet,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think you guys are right. This is very much the first episode where it is not self-contained. It is continuing the story. You took each of those first 3 and you're building off of them in different ways here as the story progresses. Sad to say we're almost halfway through this, but things are about to ramp up from a narrative standpoint in a lot of ways.
It's sad to say when you say it that way. It's optimistic to say that we're not even halfway through.
For sure.
Man, who knows? Maybe the second season, we don't even get to the end of the first game.
No, we know already. We're getting to the end of the first game.
I'm not ready.
Part 2 is season 2, which is going to be.
I think they need to split that up. I mean,
we'll
exactly.
Talk about that. Yeah. I think that's
TikTok today. That was like someone who's never seen episode part 2, and they're like going crazy crying, and like people who know this have been prepared for, like coming to try to pick him up, like console him. It's so funny.
It's gonna be.
I love that dichotomy here between people who played the game and are very familiar with the lore, pretty much us, versus people who are going in blind. Because I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of gatekeeping with this show. A lot of times in IPs, you see people who are like, oh, you didn't play the game, or you didn't read the book, you didn't see the movie, or you didn't see the first 6 movies of this franchise. And they or like, you're not a real fan if you didn't see this first. I don't feel like there's been a lot of that. I feel like there's like a relatively good camaraderie out there, which is funny to say. But like, whether you've played the game and know the story or not, everyone seems to kind of be enjoying this together. And what better example, right? Like some of our spouses who have not played the game or are not familiar with the story. Now, John, I know Courtney probably is just because of how much you've played The Last of Us over the years.
She's familiar with the concept of The Last of Us and more of like, the scenes that I've rewatched on YouTube. And that would be like, Ellie playing the guitar and things like that, right? Like she's familiar with like the vibe of The Last of Us, but certainly not any of the plot points.
But Tim, Jamie is not aware of the story at all, right? Like this is totally
she for sure thinks either Ellie or Joel will die by the end of the first season. That's her hypothesis.
I'm not gonna say anything. I'll say something offline.
They were talking about like, oh, is she gonna like She just has no clue, and I'm like, I could literally tell you whatever you wanted, but I'm not going to. Like, that's the fun of this.
Yeah, no,
'Cause I get to
absolutely not.
watch you experience this, but just like little things, I'm scarred. I was just thinking about this. I am scarred from the second part because little things like just bringing up Ellie playing the guitar just hits me so different now, and it just
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that. I honestly, I like that you're not
ready.
telling her anything there because, like, I feel like the
It's
Lauren
so
is not
hard.
watching this with me. If she were, I know for a fact she would get to the end of an episode or a plot point and be like, "Oh my gosh, so and so is gonna die. They're gonna die. Tell me if they die." I'd be
Courtney,
like, I'm not telling you.
She literally did that at the end of this episode. She didn't pick anything specific and like say, is that person gonna die? She looks at me, she goes, "What happens next?" I'm like, I'm not telling you. I could tell you
wait.
I can tell you beat for beat what happens next, but you know what I assume is gonna happen next based on the game, but like you gotta watch it.
So the best comparison I have to this, a former coworker of mine, friend of mine, Mariah, she got into the MCU hardcore when we worked together. This is around the time Endgame just came out. She watched every single MCU movie. I let her borrow all the Blu-rays. That's crazy to me. Like there was 24 movies at that time. She went through all of them. She got to Infinity War, sees the end, texts me and goes, "That's how it ends?" And I said, "Yes. And now, like everyone else, you must wait 1 year before I let you borrow the next one." I didn't do it. I let her borrow it a lot sooner than that. But that would have been pretty funny, I think. Just
That would have been.
think about it. We had to wait that year, and that was
Brutal,
torture.
man.
My gosh, between that and Endgame. Anyway, I say let's get into some spoiler territory here. So if you have not seen HBO's The Last of Us episode 4, pause this, bookmark it, come back and listen afterwards. We're going to get into some of those details now. John, did you take notes like you had the previous few weeks? And if so, do you want to dive into some of them?
Yeah, we can start with my notes here. I've got a couple of things to talk about in kind of order of the way they happen, so we'll go beat by beat. First thing right off the bat, this is the first episode with no flashback. There's no starting flashback, no flashback throughout the episode. That we were just with Joel and Ellie in the current timeline throughout the entire episode. So we whoever placed their bets that we would get a flashback every episode was wrong there.
Sorry, that's me.
I was in the same boat. I thought we would as well.
Yeah, I kind of like how we talked in weeks 1 and 2. I thought that would continue with how they were setting up each of those episodes and kind of establishing out that lore a little bit more. But that's okay.
Yeah, no, it made sense.
I'm glad
fit
this
well.
one didn't have that.
Right. Yeah,
I feel like
this was.
It fit the episode. Like this has, if there's an episode I could pick that wouldn't have a flashback, it'd be this one, because this one's about Joel and Ellie. It's not about before. It's not about after. It's about Joel and Ellie.
Exactly, and every other episode that had a flashback, that flashback shared the same theme as the episode was about to. So it makes sense that yes, this is about a relationship. This is about Joel and Ellie. This is a very new thing. So makes sense. The next note I have in here is just simply the pun book. Man, I'm so happy we have the pun book. We touched on it a little bit, but when you played the game, that was one of the best things that they did, because it was so random and it just happened like when you like Joe said, when you're just looting, you're looking through drawers and stuff like that. All of a sudden, Ellie just busts out this pun book and starts just firing off these dad jokes, and and those are the moments in the game that really make you fall in love with those characters, and that's how they build those relationships. So to see them bring it back, like the smile on my face when she busts that book out, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was downright giddy. It was kind of overboard, but I was just so excited. And the ending for me to this episode with the jeans joke is just absolutely awesome.
So
I
good.
I saw it coming from a mile away.
Oh, of course.
And it still was, it even though I saw it coming, it still hit really hard in a good way. And I saw, or what I thought was really good was Pedro's reaction.
Dude.
I think it was more in depth than in the game. Like in the game, he still kind of maintains that moniker, like whatever, it's not that funny. But here, like he lets out to crack a little.
Yeah, Joel lets out like a small giggle every once in a while, like you stupid kid, like that kind of stuff, right? But like this gets him, and he's like, what you said, we were downright giddy. He was downright giddy, dude. Like, and it was infectious. I couldn't stop laughing when he was dying like that.
I feel like honestly, like just knowing the characters from watching, like, you know, a lot of the stuff on them after the fact, I feel like that was like his genuine reaction, like just his personality.
You're right. That may have
as an
been
actor.
ad-libs.
Like I think it mixed between him and Joel, which I love.
For sure.
So
For sure.
I think he was legitimately like laughing at the jokes and they couldn't contain it,
Yeah.
which I think is awesome.
That felt very authentic for sure.
Yeah.
And one of those things where it's like, let's keep it rolling, folks. You know?
Right. For sure.
I love that so much. Those are some of my favorite parts of the entire series that we've gotten so far. It's those small moments where they really build. And even I'll say too, Ella Ramsey and how she delivers those. I love that she looks like she can't hold in the laughter. I identify with that so much because I struggle not to laugh. Shocker. Anytime like there's a situation where someone may laugh, it's me. So with her kind of like trying not to bust out in that and having a serious tone at the end of the episode, it was really good. Well done.
Yeah, she's crushing it. I think that her Ellie, to me, her Ellie is more different than Pedro's Joel is to the original Joel, right? Like I think she's slightly more varied, but that's such a good thing. Like they're different little girls, and they're gonna play this game different. Not that Ashley Johnson was a little girl when she played Ellie, but maybe that's part of it, right? This Bella is actually a young girl, so it shines through quite a bit. But I think she's crushing it, and man, Pedro Pascal is just perfect in this role.
Dude, I was showing Jamie pictures of them, the actors like before.
Yeah.
I gotta say, if you had to ask me right now, like, hey, which performance are you enjoying more between Pedro and Bella? They're both good. I would say Bella.
Yeah, it's fair.
I'm really
I'd say Pedro for sure.
I'm really enjoying Bella's rendition of Ellie here because it pays a lot of respect to the origin that was established in the games, but she is making it her own, and she's got this little twisted charm to her that is a little more unique than the one we saw in the games. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying I like the way that she's taken this direction.
I think she can be a bit more of an expressive young teenager than we could get in a video game. Like especially a game that came out in 2013 where like motion capture was good and it looks good enough, but these are real people. Like they can improv and they can have facial expressions that aren't planned and stuff like that. Like I think that adds a big factor in Ellie's character.
It's not that I don't like Ellie's character. It's just I just love Pedro. I love him as an actor. I just can't.
It's just so impressive.
I just can't not love him. I just love him in everything. It's not just that. Like it's just I don't know.
It's
like
different.
I saw the SNL stuff. Like
it's so much fun.
It's a me. Mario.
Yeah.
Like it's just the whole thing is I just love him.
He's so charming and like for me it's different reasons. Like it's just I'm loving his performance because it's just so impressive. Like he's just nailing Joel on like a technical level in such a way that's just like jaw dropping to me. And then Bella Ramsey's giving me a bit of a different take on Ellie, so I'm like I'm just having a blast with both of them.
And I feel like Bella Ramsey's take too is so like again it's different, but it's so genuine to the character. Like you get the scene in the truck where she's reading through the book, like it feels so natural. Like I feel like if you read some of the stuff that you get from the game as a in the show, it might come off as like cheesy. I feel like she delivers it in such a nice way that it feels like her that you may not get with a lot of the other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I listened again to the post episode podcast with Troy Baker, Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann, and the way Craig Mazin describes that age of character. So a kid that's that age and the way that they behave and the way that their emotions are all over the place, where they're angry and rebellious, but they're also kind of still like a sponge and they still need that approval, right? The way he describes it is "fuck you, tuck me in." That's and like it hits the nail on the head. It's perfect. Fuck you, tuck me in. That is like okay. That is exactly what this Ellie is portraying right now, and like they go into detail on how like Bella's performance is perfect for that 14 to 15-year-old little girl who just is a rebel, but like still needs that that parent figure, that father figure there. So crushing it. That leads right into my next note is that Joel is starting to crack, and this relationship is absolutely forming. When he fully cracks, we talked about when he's in the sleeping bag, that's towards the end, end of the episode a little bit, but all throughout he's given a little bit. Every time she says something, like he's invested. They're having conversations. He's showing interest, and even in the truck, he opens up. He talks a lot about Tommy, right? So he's like not an open book, but he is certainly, coming a long way from your cargo, which we just got last episode.
He says it again in this episode too in the car, but I feel like he doesn't.
No,
he means it much less.
Wasn't that last episode? Was it this one?
I think it was this one. When in the car and he's like talking about Tommy, and he's like, I
Oh,
think
maybe it
this
was.
episode, wasn't it?
I thought it was last
he does
episode.
say it in this episode. I don't remember exactly what he says, but you're
Yeah,
right, Tim.
the context was Ellie asked, like, if you're so, like, what's the point of going on? And if you don't believe in this world, if you don't care about this world, what's the point of going on? And he said it's for family. You go on for family.
Yeah.
And she says, am I not family? And he goes, no, you're cargo. Tess was very close to family, and she asked me to do this.
Yeah, that was this episode.
Okay,
Yep.
I thought it was last, but.
Yeah.
And so even
Same
even
point.
more
Yeah,
progress,
we're
right?
in the same wavelength.
In the same episode, he's making that much progress to obviously like starting to show compassion and care for this young girl.
Dude, he is the Mandalorian. Like that, it's the same thing, right? Like he's got a
different voice.
he's got to take Grogu where he's taking him. I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but they grow close, right? Like he's doing the same thing with Ellie. I love the contrast there.
It is good.
It's great.
It's like Pedro's been typecasted into this like father figure, this reluctant
totally
father
is.
figure.
He definitely does have a type. You see those videos where he likes to be called, ever calls him daddy?
Yes.
Do you see any of that stuff?
Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff.
Awesome.
Hey man,
But
he embraces
I
it.
feel like I love it. So I feel like that's just kind of to prove your point. Like they have the camp scene, and like you can tell that she says like, and then we're gonna find us here. It's like, no one's gonna find us. Then you realize that like he thinks about that and decides to stay up the entire night just to protect her. As much as he's trying to put up the facade, because it's shortly after that he says the cargo thing, or before that, you could tell that he's slowly breaking down. Like he's saying it, but doesn't mean it anymore.
Right, for sure.
And I feel like that's the difference.
No doubt that those layers are definitely peeling back.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that car sequence in the truck. I'm so happy we got that. That was some of my favorite Ellie development when she snags that book for that magazine from Bill, and she shows it to Joel, and he's like, "Oh my god, do I have to go father mode? Like, do I really have to explain this right now?" And she's like, "I'm just fucking with you," and she tosses out the like. I love it so much. That's like one of my favorite Ellie development moments in the game. So I'm so glad they brought it over, and it's word for word. That's basically word for word, and so is when she finds the cassette tape. She finds a cassette tape, pops it in. Joel's like, this is a little bit before my time, but it's a winner though. Like
How does he walk around with this thing?
Oh yeah,
it's
so funny, so funny.
Dude, that music plays there, and I'm just like, oh yes, I love it so much. But yeah, that magazine thing, I was very excited about that as well. Much like the joke book or the puns, I should say. Yeah, it's just give me those shot for shot, and I'll be happy.
Yeah,
every time.
People have been layering them over each other in little TikToks, like it's just been so fun to watch.
Me and John are in the same algorithm.
We're in the same algorithm for sure. Absolutely.
But another thing that I feel like we're not talking about either is just how well they did with the world building. I feel like when you're driving in that truck and the music plays and she throws the magazine out the window, you start to see like a lot of the world. You see like the abandoned theme park. You see the FedEx trucks that are all abandoned in like the lot. Like I just feel like it feels so real, and I feel like that's crazy.
So
I saw that theme park, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, did they drive by Fantasy
Island?" I thought you were gonna say by your house.
That's real.
No, it looks just like the layout from Fantasy Island.
It does.
Which was also a little bit abandoned.
Right. Something that a friend of the show, Matt Rohrbeck, mentioned on his podcast is that the fact that they can use actual licenses. Tim just mentioned the FedEx truck, right? They mentioned Starbucks. Ellie says like, "Oh, is that what they used to sell at the Starbucks back in the QZ?"
Sign.
The Arby's thing, right? Exactly. The Arby's is a restaurant. They don't give free lunch. It almost makes it hit a little bit closer to home. You can't have that stuff in a video game. They're not going to pay you for the licensing, and I don't think you get the same kind of liberties with fair use when it comes to that kind of stuff. It makes it feel a little different for me when I hear Starbucks and Arby's. I'm like, oh, that's our world.
It's just so funny. I went into work today, and I go back and there's someone who has one of the office in her office heating up an Arby's sandwich. I'm like, oh, just thinking about The Last of Us as he's heating up a sandwich,
And they pass. I'm so sorry if we already said this. There's an Arby's sign at one point in this. Yes.
Oh, Tim said the Arby's sign. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe said it
I
first.
missed it.
Yeah. That's how he brought it up.
Yeah.
Honestly, that kind of stuff, I think you're right where it ties more into the realism because it just that little. Yeah, you could say like Seattle Coffee Company instead of Starbucks. But when you say it's Starbucks, it removes that little bit of layer between the fiction and reality here. So just those little things bring this, and even how they described, I hate to say like the pandemic early on in the intro of the first episode, all that stuff makes this feel so much more intense to me, even than the video game. And that's not to shortchange the video game, because I think video games can tell stories as well as any medium out there. and this just it's dialing it up in a way that I didn't think it could.
It's not just a TV show. It is a television show that is written by some of the best of the best. I mean, you've got the creative mind behind it. Is like, I mean, Craig Mazin is proven he is like a top dog when it comes to television. Like Chernobyl is one of the best little miniseries you can ever find. He takes inspiration from someone like Vince Gilligan from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Like best creative minds in the business are here, and they're flexing their muscles for sure. We talked about Starbucks, but in that conversation, I love the little nod to Joel's love for coffee that we explore a little bit more in the second game. Not a real spoiler for the second game at all, but there's you find out that Joel will do a lot for coffee. He will make some pretty interesting trades to get something like coffee that you can't just go to the store and grab anymore.
Tim, tell me you and I would be in the same boat.
Dude.
Yep.
We would find the coffee no matter what it takes. It can't be for nothing.
Got more of that coffee?
Y'all got more of that Starbucks?
I got to record a podcast tonight.
No one watches them anymore because the world's over. But
I still got to record.
So we're winding down from the happy stuff. The relationship building is put on a bit of a pause because we finally get to the city. And what city is it? It's not Pittsburgh like it is in the game. It is Kansas City. I think even in the post show, but also furthermore in the after podcast, Craig talks a little bit about why they changed the city, and it just comes down to the fact that their filming location just looked more like Kansas City. They asked themselves. They asked ourselves, like, what about Pittsburgh made this special? Nothing really. It just happened to be the location. We're going to change it just because our filming looks more like Kansas City.
I heard a similar thing about how Pittsburgh was going to miss the playoffs because they're going to get booted by the Buffalo Sabres, and the city's just a dump.
Dang. Wow, they missed out on they missed out on The Last of Us. Now they're about to miss out on the playoffs.
The playoffs?
This is
They
rough.
didn't want to do too much. They just wanted to,
Oof.
John, coming in with the fire. I don't have anything that could top what you guys both said.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And I don't feel bad about it.
In the game, you can see a Sidney Crosby jersey just tattered.
Yeah.
But
In
now,
the distance.
what's to Pat Mahomes?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, when they said Wichita, I was like, it's funny. Some things they say in this show, I'm like, is that from the game? Am I remembering this correctly? So obviously that was not the case, and they explained that in the 5 minutes after the episode and the look back. And then there was something else that I wanted to bring up. Was
it the Cheyenne thing? I like that a lot. When Ellie's reading the map and how did she read Cheyenne? Maybe she said like Shane or something like that, and Joel corrects her and goes Cheyenne, and she goes, really? It's just such a cute little moment.
Yep. I like that he's giving her crap for reading how to read the map. She's like, I've been in a car for
this is my second day in a car, man.
Yeah.
So
well done.
Yeah. That relationship is great. Those moments,
I love it.
Good and bad. Whether it's funny or contentious, they're building.
Yeah. They are. Yeah. So we do have to put that relationship building on a quick pause because we do get to Kansas City and we are encountered with our first what I would call gameplay sequence. This is Joel and Ellie. They crash the truck. They find this is the first ever, one of the first, not the first ever, not the reveal trailer, but the first television trailer for The Last of Us is what this scene was. They find this guy who's hurt in the street, and Ellie's like, we're gonna stop for him. In the game, Joel says he ain't even hurt, and I was hoping that he would say that, but I can't get mad every time they pull a line out because it worked totally fine. Because he still does say the other iconic line, like where he goes, "I've been on both sides of this. That's why I know this. That's why I know this so well." But we get them crashing through the building. There's some people that are just randomly after them, and what we get in the show is a little bit context. Why are these people so angry? Why are they just shooting at random strangers? We get a little bit of context for that. We get a face behind the why behind just random militarized group of people that just want you dead for no reason. A little bit later, we get some more information there. But we have this shootout. Joel's holding his own. He takes a couple of guys down. And then all of a sudden, he gets outnumbered. He gets, someone bests him, and Ellie realizes that she needs to come into action. She comes out. She ended up stealing that gun. She shoots the guy in the back. So she, obviously pretty traumatic situation for her. But man, that's how we get introduced to Brian. And Brian's laying there and he's begging for his life. And it was traumatic, dude. It was we talk about how emotional episode 3 was, obviously for very different reasons. I don't know the last time a TV show, a movie, or a video game shook me like that scene did. It was so well acted and it was so disturbing. It's something that they did a lot of in part 2. when you play The Last of Us Part 2. There was a lot of that. They tried to really personalize the violence. They tried to, like, if you were to take somebody out, they would yell like, "Oh my God, like they got Brian," like, and they would start to get sad about it and stuff like that. They tried to humanize and ground that violence a little bit. But when you do that in live action, man, that was really something.
Dude, I was thinking that too as soon as they gave him a name there, because in the game he doesn't have a name, right? Like he's just
in part one,
goon at the end.
There's not. Yeah, that scene has
he's under the water. Like, didn't even talk to him, does he? He just gets shot.
It's instant. There's none of that begging. Yeah. There's none of that conversation.
That's very much a Last of Us Part 2 development, like you said, where they were developing those names. You would call out, and there would be some grief over it, and they did a good job of really making that intense. Because all too often, I think, whether it's a video game or a TV show or a movie, the villains, even small scale, this is not a primary antagonist here. They just get swept away. We don't care. It's kind of like how we joke about Nathan Drake shooting everyone in the game.
We're right? So like, desensitized to violence when it comes to media.
We are. This is a nice way to bring it back. I'm sorry, Tim.
Until you play The Last of Us Part 2, then you literally hate your life.
They do a great job with it, but I would argue that
That's important.
It is. It really makes you feel the weight of what's going on, and I would argue that this scene was more impactful than anything they did in The Last of Us Part 2 in this scope.
It was.
Oh, 100%. That's why I'm worried.
I'll say two things that really stood out. So he's screaming "Mom," and that's horrifying.
Yeah, he didn't even just scream "Mom." He said, "My mom is close. You can take me to her." Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it could have ended differently. I like a lot that they did not really show what happened. That Joe kills him, right? Now, why do I care about that? Yes, in a lot of cases, I'm not a fan of showing gore for gore's sake. I think if there's meaning behind it, if it makes sense in the story, you do it. All too often in this day and age, we get stuff where I'm just like, you're just doing that, so we're going to talk about it. That was not the case here. They don't show it. And because of that, because you see Joel walking towards him essentially before it pans, it focuses on Ellie. I think it actually makes it more intense because now it's left to our imagination.
You're Ellie.
What was going to happen there? Exactly.
You're Ellie in that situation.
You turn your back, or if you're me, you're kind of like this, watching the screen, and that makes it so much more meaningful to me. Because I'll tell you, if they had shown it, I don't know that it would have had the same impact. I think it still would have been tragic, yes. But not seeing it was like, hey, kids, don't watch this. This is about to get really horrible and gruesome.
When Joel was saying go behind the wall, like turn around, he was talking to Ellie and to us. Like it was,
Yeah. I commend them for doing that. And I think we need to continue to see that throughout this series in those events, or in those like events that are from the video game, but they're in more detail, or they're more humanized when it comes to villains. So that was a very impactful moment, and it was well executed.
The one thing that I was thinking too, that as we're kind of this tangent, kind of rewinding a bit, when they're both behind the truck and you have the people that are hunting Joel screaming like, "I'm gonna fucking get you!" Like, I literally felt like I was in the game where you're like behind the truck and they're yelling at you. Like, I just in my head, I'm like, I literally feel like I'm like watching the video game right now, and those like you got the random bad guys by the truck, and he's like peeking out with his rifle, like screaming at you, and then his guy gets shot, and he goes checks on him. Like, I just felt like I was in the game. It's crazy.
It's ripped right from that gameplay sequence in Pittsburgh. God. It's really good.
It's funny you said that. Like, oh, this is the first time the gameplay sequence happens, and that's like what I thought of the whole time until that part, and I was like, oh fuck,
yeah,
like,
this is not good.
That's one of my favorite gameplay sequences in The Last of Us Part 1. It's one of the first shootouts where you're with Ellie that is really impactful, and you have to duck and cover, and you can play a little bit stealthy if you want. It depends on how you want to execute that. But this was right from the game, and it was so good to see her. Like you said, Tim, how he shoots the guy and the other goon goes to check on him. It was just out of focus, but you can see him looking down, and I'm like, think about any other movie or TV show. He's out of cover. He would shoot him, but this is so video game oriented that you're ducking and covering. So like, it was so good. I can't believe they've been able to translate that. It's so hard to translate what works in a video game to a TV show without abandoning totally what
Yeah.
worked in the
Right.
video game. And
It's
they're finding the middle ground.
it's because they're not copy and pasting it. They're just giving nods where it's
Yep.
necessary. They have Neil Druckmann. They understand the vibe. What does that gameplay sequence make you feel like? Well, okay, this is how we translate it to film or to television. They've got the right people, and they just know what they're doing. And I'm having such a blast.
I think one of my favorite parts about the game is that you didn't need to handhold Ellie. So, we played, obviously Resident Evil 4 is coming out soon. The biggest pet peeve I've had with any game is that when you have to like constantly worry about protecting a younger character. And I love that the game didn't do it, and I love that the show doesn't do it either.
Everyone
Like,
hates
Ellie's a big
everyone.
girl,
Everyone
like,
hates
she's gonna learn.
Sidekick missions are
Yes.
always the worst. Escort missions and
Yep.
escort
Yep.
missions in Grand Theft Auto, stuff like that. Like it's always the worst. Then all of a sudden, BioShock Infinite comes out and The Last of Us comes out, and we realize like, oh, we can do this right.
Yeah.
Like that character can actually help you, right? Those games realize that, and they can enhance the story and the gameplay. And I remember that being like such a revelation. Isn't that funny to think? Because before those games came out, the norm was that you were gonna die protecting this character, or that character was gonna die, and you were gonna have to try to this 6 more
So
times.
annoying. They would always die. Always die.
Yeah. But what if
Wouldn't
that
it be
character
annoyed?
could help you? What if in BioShock Infinite she can give you ammo? What?
What if she can boost you up to places you can't reach? Crazy.
Bonkers. Yeah.
So
Love it.
cool.
Open a door that you can't reach.
So next thing I have is I touched a little bit on it, but it's cool to have a reason why random people are hunting them. In the video game, you get to Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden there's just people that want you dead because they've kind of hammered it home that yes, zombies are bad, but the people are bad too. So we don't want to, people are just going to kill us. They want to take our stuff and they want us dead, right? In this, we get introduced to this group. We get introduced to this group of people that have taken over this QZ in Kansas City. We get introduced to the leader, this woman named Kathleen. She's got this very intense interrogation scene with her doctor who delivered her childbirth, who she's about ready to ice. We have a conversation and we figure out why she's angry, why they're on the hunt. They're looking for a guy named Henry. People who have played the game know exactly who Henry is. And we know that that's going to be a very interesting episode when it comes up. But I like that. I like to see this, this group of people. I like to see them get a name. You talked about it a little bit before, just understanding the villain, like humanizing the villain. Because at the end of the day, they're not the villain. They are just another group of people with their own agenda. At the end of this show, we're gonna certainly be talking about who is the real villain and perspectives. And this is just another case like that where like Kathleen is no worse of a person than Joel is. She's out looking for her own and she's trying to keep her people safe and survive, right? And that's another thing we got a lot of in part 2 is perspective, and something that continues to be a theme in The Last of Us.
I think Joel says it a good way. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I really liked Kathleen, so portrayed by Melanie Linsky here. Every time she was on screen, I could not take my eyes off her. Not that there was a lot of other stuff going on, but there are some times when characters that maybe you're not familiar with or characters who are revealed, such as Kathleen, come on screen, and they just kind of command your attention. And I got to say, she did that, and I enjoyed her performance.
She's so interesting to me because, like, when I first see her on screen, my first thought is, like, she's not menacing. She's not angry, brooding. Like, she's not forceful. Like, why do people follow her? And then you start
That's the point, kind of.
100%, right? So, like, that's exactly what they're going for, and they nail it. And you start to ask those questions. Like, what is the purpose behind, why is she in charge? And, not that it's a spoiler, but Craig in the podcast mentions, keep watching the show. You're going to get some more information.
So she's actually in a show called Yellow Jackets on Showtime that my wife and I have watched. And similar, like, again, you talk about how Pedro Pascal is the type. She is a type too. Like, she's a very similar character in that too, where it's like everyone's following and listening to her, but she doesn't look like the intimidating type.
It's very
So
sweet.
I'm curious on how they did the character. But I like how, Ellie and Joel have a conversation of like, they're not the Fireflies. They're not who's the other group? The
Fedra.
Fedra. Who are they? And Joel says they're people. They're just people. And I feel like that hits home exactly kind of the topic we're talking about is they're people. They're protecting their own. Like, they've been wronged, and now they're righting their own wrongs in their own way. And this is how they're doing it. And,
the last two topics we talked about, you can really see that Neil Druckmann has been trying to develop and flesh out in The Last of Us. And it was very apparent from part 1 to part 2. Humanizing violence, being able to find out these people's names and hearing them grimace and having these conversations, and also humanizing the villain and showing perspective that there's no villains in this world. Maybe David's kind of a scumbag. We'll get to we'll get there, but for the most part, everybody kind of just has their own agenda and they're just out there trying to survive. So that's something that you really saw, that not what I don't want to say agenda, that sounds bad, but like that message, that theme being pushed from part 1 to part 2 so heavily. It's cool to see them infuse those themes that have now become The Last of Us in this show, this adaptation of part 1. Perspective, 100%. It's all about perspective. So we get introduced to this group. We hear Henry's name. Fans of the show know who that is. But we also get to see a very familiar voice. We get to see so Kathleen's right hand man is played by Jeffrey Pierce, which is the voice of Tommy in the game. So that was very cool. I knew that going into this that he was going to be in this episode, so I was able to listen for his voice, and I'm like, yep, that's Tommy.
No, I did not know he was going to be in this, but at the second I heard it, I was like, Tommy! Oh, you kidding me? Yes, that was awesome. I love that he got to play this role in this, and I love when they bring the voice actors on for something like this when it comes to live action.
Yes.
Dude, I love that voice. It's so good.
It's so smooth. It's so smooth. He's got a killer voice.
He does.
I can't wait till we get to see.
It looks awesome too.
My gosh. Badass, man. Yeah.
For sure.
Talk about a beard right there. That's a majestic one. I can't wait till we get Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker. Like, we know they're both going to be in this. I just can't wait to see what they have in store for their characters.
I keep waiting for a cameo from Nolan North at some point. Just feels like it's gonna happen.
It does.
It's Money Dog.
Right. I mean, hey, Nolan North was in the game. He voices David. So like that would be interesting. I would love to see Nolan North.
That's the one I've been looking out for sure.
And the last note I have is that Sam and Henry are here and they are ready to break our hearts. So if you haven't played the game, you're in for quite the story with these two characters that show up in the middle of the night and hold Joel and Ellie at gunpoint. You're in for quite the story. I cannot wait. I hope that's all of next episode. I really hope that they don't deviate in some way. I can see them figuring out the pacing and trying to sneak in the Left Behind Riley episode or something like that. But I hope they go right into the Henry and Sam stuff because they've really teased it and I need it now.
Yeah.
Don't you think? So I agree. I think Sam and Henry, we need like a whole episode dedicated to that part of the story. Don't you think we need a whole episode dedicated to Left Behind?
I think we do. I think we get one. I think you're gonna get that. I think that's also probably when we're gonna see Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie's mother in this game. In this show, which wasn't a character at all in the game, but we know is going to be in the show from casting, and they've even talked about it a little bit. I think we get a full episode of that. I don't know how it happens, but
it's not upcoming episode, but the next episode, because obviously we know what happens this next episode. I think that's the most fitting spot to put this is after this next episode.
Yes, I got some of the events that are going to happen next episode that we're pretty sure about. I can totally see how that could lead into this Left Behind stuff. So that's a good call, Tim.
Yeah. Could we just talk about it for a second? Oh, go ahead, Joe. I was going to talk about the thing.
I can't wait to see in Left Behind, in that part of the story, all of the scenery and imagery there. Because like that DLC is
so cool.
It's so much fun.
Oh no.
Tim.
Just experience the story this way now. You're this far. Like,
I mean, I know what happens. It's not like I'm like ignorant.
Right,
to it,
exactly. But
but I haven't played it.
Going through the arcade and all that stuff, every nook and cranny of that, I tore up. I needed to see it, and it's short. It's an hour and a half. You could make it 2 hours, kind of thing, maybe a little longer. And all I'm saying is, the way I think people felt about the third episode of this show could very well be reminiscent to how you feel when you get that.
I think
portion.
I think the team behind the show was just like, just wait, guys. Just wait. You think episode 3 was, yeah, I think you're right.
And the thing about big picture, without getting into spoilers, what is going to happen in the rest of this season? And then when we get into The Last of Us Part 2 for season 2 of the show,
I can't even think about it.
People who don't know the game,
I don't want to think about it,
have no idea what's coming. Like, I cannot emphasize it. I have goosebumps talking about it right now.
I do too. I'm just thinking about it.
Buckle up. You thought episode 3 was going to be the kind of the pinnacle?
Oh.
It's one of probably
like
what's
shit
going to be a
before, just
handful.
wait.
John just did, by the way, the Joel gif.
I did.
So that was really great. We need to make that happen. Tim, I'm sorry. I keep cutting you
It's
off.
okay. No, I was going to talk about the scene where right before we see Sam and Henry, the little, interaction. She says the pun, he laughs. We talked a little bit about that. But just like the little, did they talk about his ear not being able to hear a certain side in the game?
No, that's a new development, I'm pretty sure.
So I love that they did that because, like, oh, you hear worse from your right side. And then when he wakes up, his left ear is on the pillow and he can't hear out of his right side.
Yep.
And that's why they're able to get the jump on him, is because he doesn't hear. I just love how they've done it. Like, it's just, I watched it and I just think, like, they're thinking of everything. It's amazing to see. I just love it. It's just like such little things to me that I'm like,
They give you that little
awesome.
breadcrumb and then it pays off immediately.
Yeah. Yes.
You guys see
Like,
this attention to detail that we've got here, whether it's just the show or how it pays respect to the video game, so on and so forth. I wonder if Neil Druckmann would ever be interested in being involved with Star Wars.
Joe, we could dream, couldn't
some
we?
of that.
Yeah, Joe is dreaming right now.
Attention to detail. Oh my god, how sick would that be?
That's my barometer, right? Like, okay, that's great. Could they do a Star Wars series? Could they do a Star Wars movie? Like, imagine the level of detail you'd get from a Neil Druckmann produced Star Wars film or series. Just saying.
Instead we get what's your family's name? I don't have a family. Okay, Solo.
Solo. I'm going Solo, yeah.
And we get those stupid dice that have to be so important for some reason. Oh, it's so perfect. That is so perfect.
Under your shirt earlier. So one little thing that I was going to talk about too is we were talking about, the Left Behind and how that's going to look. And, obviously we've been taking essential social media, TikTok, stuff like that. And a big take on episode 3 is it didn't bring anything to the series. There was no zombies, but like, I feel like once this is over and you rewatch episode 3, you'll realize how impactful that episode is and how much it means, and it represents the entire show and part 1 and part 2. Like, I just feel like people who haven't played the game look at episode 3 differently than they look at it now. And I feel like seeing the Left Behind part is going to make people look at episode 3 even more. When the whole thing's over, they're going to look at the episode 3 even more than that, just seeing how different the stories can be and, how different they are. So I'm excited for that. So
yeah, there's a lot of good stuff ahead. And when I say good, I don't mean happy.
No,
I mean, very, very detailed,
narratively rich.
FML, yeah.
Narratively rich is the best way to put it, for sure. Yeah, lots of that coming here in the next 5 weeks.
I love that.
So, yeah.
My toxic positivity's got nothing.
Well, that's all I got for
that.
That's all I've got for notes. We get left off with the introduction of Henry and Sam, and for people who've played the game, that's a cliffhanger. For folks who haven't, get ready.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. The more we've talked about this, the more I've come to, even as the simmers, the more I've come to think about how much I like this episode in particular. Closing thoughts here. We'll wrap it up for episode 4. Tim, anything we didn't get to put a bow on this?
No, I mean, this has been, probably one of the first times since Obi-Wan that I've been so excited, where I'm like, it's like 9:15. I'm like, I have to go make sure my wife isn't sleeping, because I need to watch this the night it comes out, because I'm just so excited. And I just feel that same way about next episode.
I was going to say, speaking of the night it comes out, we got good news here, boys. We only got 3 more days. It is, thank you for the Super Bowl that it's pushing up the episode 5 of The Last of Us to Friday instead of Sunday. So that's going to be good, man. That's perfect. I
want to be depressed that the episode was on and I have to deal with that anxiety. Yeah. And then the fact that the Bills aren't in the Super Bowl either. So, double whammy this weekend.
It is a double whammy. And then we have to wait 9 days for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. I was excited when I saw that come across the screen for the intro for this. I was like, Friday. I was like, are we switching things up, boys? No, it's just a 1 week thing, but that's okay. I'll take it. For me, Tim, you mentioned, kind of having to make sure Jamie is awake. For me, what this looks like is, how quickly can I get Daisy to sleep? She's the night owl like myself. And this past week, so my almost 1-year-old Nora was not getting down. It was like 8:30. And this was not a threat, but I said to Lauren, my wife, I was like, listen, I can take Nora. I could get her in the swing. I could try to get her down. But if she is awake at 9 o'clock, she's going to see some gruesome stuff. And she was like, got it. I'll get her. So she took care of Nora. I lucked out. Daisy fell asleep. And then I had like almost some pregame time. And this is the first one I was able to watch almost exactly right at 9 o'clock. So
Nice.
that was exciting.
I think we started at like 9:40.
Pretty good. And that's the thing. Like we can watch this whenever, right?
It is
like,
nice.
We don't have to. It's cool that it's at 9 o'clock, so we can start it then. But John, putting a bow on this episode, any closing thoughts here before we move on to next week?
No, nothing, man. We covered it all. What a fun episode. What a fun character building episode. I can't wait for more.
John, I love what you're doing with the notes here. It's very much like we've done in some of our other series for Star Wars Reviewed or MCU Reviewed. You're doing a great job with that. We appreciate you guiding us kind of through the show here. But let us know your thoughts if you are watching or listening. Again, whether that's live at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. You could watch all of our episodes back in video form at youtube.com/thegeekiverse. And of course, you can listen on podcast services around the globe. If you like video games, which maybe there's a good chance that you do because you're talking Last of Us with us, and that is, in fact, a video game before it was a TV series.
Yeah, you're watching a show that's based on a show that's based on a video game.
It's crazy. It's mind-blowing. Very meta. So we're about to talk video games. We're going to take a quick break. We'll keep the live stream going. But our weekly show, Busy Sticks, which is all about video games, we're going to dive into that in just a few moments. So if you'd like, stick around. We'd appreciate that. But for Tim, for John, I am Josiah. We'll catch you in just a few days' time for episode 5 of The Last of Us. Peace.